Hello, hello, welcome. Dave, we're back once again.
CR, happy Wednesday. Glad to be back together.
Dave, actually, today is Groundhog's Day. So if you remember Pugsatani Phil, we've been so worried if he's going to see his shadow or not. And do you want to know the prediction?
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me what it is.
6 more weeks of winter, Dave.
Well, that was better than the one in New Jersey. I guess there's another one. I don't know if you saw the article. He passed away before he got to Groundhog's Day. And so, like, no shadow up here. We don't have a groundhog and we can't get one in time.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that Phil gave a good prediction then, because if that was the case, we'd all be in trouble.
Yeah, I had to laugh this morning when I saw that article. I'm like, wow, that's like losing Santa Claus right before Christmas. I mean, here we are, Groundhog's Day. Everybody's looking forward to it, and there's no groundhog.
Yeah, that'd be like Christmas coming and no Santa, right?
Well, I know we're getting a big ice storm here this week, next couple of days. So that winter is definitely going to continue on here for a while.
Yeah, weather changes. One day it's 20, one day it's 50, but hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, we were out disc golfing yesterday and it was 60 degrees. We hurried and got our weekly disc golf game in because we're like, there's no way the rest of the week we're getting out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'd like to welcome all of you. I hope you're out there doing something fun wherever you are. If it's snowy, if it's warm, I'd like to know because I think it's very interesting where we're able to do these things. I mean, heck, like you said, Dave, one spot you're disc golf, the next day you're iced or snowed in.
Yeah, it's really crazy around here. And I guess I can take my skates out. Maybe I could skate golf. Maybe that would be what I'd do with that disc. But yeah, very, very strange to see these weather patterns and what's going on.
And Dave, if you ever have been to Pennsylvania over to Puxatawny, you got to go check it out once. It was crazy. I've been there before. It was years ago, but if you ever get a chance, stop by that little town and you can just, warm your little heart up. Just try not to go during February because it's quite cold.
Okay, I'll have to do that.
Well, I'd like to welcome all of you here. Every time I go live, my face itches all of the time and I'm trying not to itch it, but it seems like as soon as I'm off, I never itch. But when I'm here, Dave, I'm just constantly rubbing my face. But I want to welcome all of you with us joining live and those on replay. Thank you for being here. Dave, the thing we love about this is just the fact that we get to continually answer your questions and we get to continually go and talk about the topics we love, which is retirement.
We do, because retirement is about as inconsistent for most people as the weather. When we look at what's going on out there, really in a situation where people have a lot of risks that they're going to face, they've got a lot of ups, downs, things that are going on. We got to help you get through that time. And I'll tell you, when we look at our planning, it is going to be more consistent than the weather. Now, I know, like, even later this week, it was showing that today was supposed to be the lows in the 50s. Well, then 2 days later, here we are. Today's going to be the lows into the 30s. So I'm not sure where that 20 degrees went, but yeah, we're going to definitely get you more consistent, get you on track to where you can get where you want to be.
And Dave Elliott here has been on the show before. He's joining us from YouTube, and he said the snow is starting to pile up here. So I don't know where here is, but I'm assuming that you're like the rest of the country right now, just getting plummeted.
I can tell you where it's not. Puerto Rico, definitely not there, but I can't tell you anywhere outside of that.
Yeah, Dave, you were in Puerto Rico for a little bit. Before we get started, tell me a little bit about the experience there. A lot of people don't know that you've spent some time in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I was there 5 years. I moved over Christmas, cheap accountants, the way that we are. Christmas Day, we took 7 of us. So we had myself, my wife, 5 of our 6 kids. So we've got 7 now because we're adopting, but at that time we had the 6 kids. We had 2 dogs, 14 suitcases, 7 carry-ons, and we moved. And we started a new venture over there with the Puerto Rican people. Loved our 5 years there on the island. It was quite an experience going from public schools to private schools, going from a mainly English speaking area, obviously in Utah, where we were moving from, to Spanish speaking, but had a great time. Loved the island, loved El Yunque. That was my favorite place on the island, the rainforest up there. Unfortunately, it got hit heavily in 2017, as the rest of the island did with the hurricane, but just a gorgeous place to go up there and hike to the top of the mountain and be able to look out, see the beaches, the mountain areas there. Lovely place to live.
Yeah, definitely. It is a beautiful place. I got to go visit you a few times. And I think that's the one thing is that we've got to just take in the beauty of what we have, even if it's snowing like Elliot is there, or it's, 20 degrees where you are, Dave. It's just in life, we've just got to enjoy those moments. But the one thing we've got to make sure we do, Dave, is make sure we plan for retirement. And that's what we're here for today, because I think you've said this several times is we plan more for our next vacation than we do for our retirement.
We do. We're not giving it the attention it needs. We're not focusing the way that we should. It's not a priority to almost half of Americans. They're not even thinking about it, worried about it. And unfortunately, when we look at longevity CR, for many people, it's going to be the longest period, maybe longer than their working years, the longest period of their lives. That self-imposed unemployment we call retirement, that could be 20, 30, 40 years. Well, if you look at someone like myself, I really got started in the workforce at 24. By the time I got done with my college, got my degree, really, 24, 25, work until 65, that's 40 years. And then let's say after that, you're retired, maybe living into 100. Now, I don't expect to live that long. Kidney issues and those type of things. I don't think I'm here at age 100, but for many people, that's the way it's going to be. They're going to have a long, long period of time that they've got to figure out how to make that money last.
And we are here to answer your questions. Obviously, we've got a pile of questions here as well. So, Dave, I'm going to ask you these questions. And for those who are here with us live, please go ahead and submit your questions. It doesn't matter what topic. We're talking about retirement, and I think that's an important thing to bring up. But before we dive into it, Dave, a beautiful good morning from Gary. He's joining us from sunny San Francisco Bay Area. So that's the one thing, is we can always count on the sun over there, I'm hoping.
Yeah, Gary, if you can respond back in the chat, welcome first. Glad to have you with us. But what's the low temperature there? What would you get down to during the winter months? You wouldn't mind putting that in there. Be interested to see. Not that familiar with the San Francisco winters, but love to see that, because I know CR and I've got to plan a trip at some point. We keep talking about it to get out and see you.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's make sure it's like in the 70s, 80s. But well, Dave, let's dive into our first question. So we've got Avery. Is a CPA and is helping her client who recently finalized a divorce. What is the first thing Avery should do for her client's retirement plan?
One of the first things that I would suggest they look into is the Social Security benefits that may be available. Because again, when we start looking at retirement, we want to make sure that that base, is Social Security, that's the base of anyone's retirement, that we know what that is, because that's going to help us figure out how much more money do we need to supplement that? How much more assets do we need to accumulate to be able to get ourselves where we need to be? So I would say to look at that now. Avery may be able to qualify on their own benefits. If not, would want to definitely look and see, would she be eligible to claim on an ex-spouse's benefits, on that spouse that got divorced, and then look at the timing, everything that's going on there, see if that's going to be, what the option is.
Dave, as we're looking about retirement planning, because I know Avery's here is working with clients, what is the first thing that you recommend to anybody who's laying out the plan for the first time by saying, okay, Dave, I'm here, I'm on the show, I'm watching, I really need to get a plan in place. How do I start?
Yeah, the first thing they've got to do is just gather the information. I mean, that's really what we're trying to do. Even here, when we're talking about Social Security, we're trying to get the right information so that we can figure out what we're going to be able to create. It's kind of like if you're baking. I know you bake and cook a lot, CR. You got to get those ingredients together. If you're making chocolate chip cookies and you don't have any eggs, or you don't have any chocolate chips, you're not going to be able to make chocolate chip cookies. Now, you may be able to make a no-bake cookie. You may be able to do something else, but it's kind of that way with retirement. We need to get all those tools and all those pieces together, and then we can say, okay, now let's figure out what the plan's going to be, because now we know what you have.
And Dave, I definitely appreciate that answer. I'm going to pull up a few here from coming in from the audience here. I've got to Gary. He said, Dave, it's going to be 48 to 60.
Well, I love that. Maybe it's time to take a trip, CR.
We'll do that. Now, if you want to go visit Mike, Dave, he said that the low temperature is 37 at night, but the low is 60 today and then 70 last week. So
yeah, that's good. I have a friend that lives in Fargo, North Dakota, and he'll send me stuff every once in a while. It's like 15 below, and I'm like, oh, glad I'm not there.
yeah, you and I both lived in Southern Utah. We lived in the mountains of Southern Utah. I don't want anyone to get confused, because there's an area down there that's very nice. But where we lived, we had tons of snow. It was cold. I remember one Thanksgiving, Dave, I was going out to start my car to head up north, and it was -6, and I couldn't get my car to start. So we've definitely been in those times.
Yeah, the most snow I ever remember, just between 2 and 2.5 feet. Growing up as a kid, there were a number of times that we hit that. My parents showed me some pictures where over 3 feet, they're trying to get the snow off the roof even, which we typically wouldn't do in our area. It's not that high of an elevation. It's a mile high, but yeah, a lot of that white, wet stuff.
And Elliot's saying that he's coming in from Southeast Michigan. So definitely, definitely a cold part. All right, Dave. Well, let's jump back over. I've got more questions here I need to ask, and I want to remind all those with us, if you're joining us live, please go ahead and submit your retirement questions as they come up. Again, we have lots of different topics we're discussing. We'd love to be able to squeeze some of your questions in. All right, Dave. So Tracy and Maxwell, 71 and 68, would like to retire this next year. Is now too late to begin account conversions?
I'm really glad they asked this question because it's one we get asked quite a bit in our presentations, especially as of late, that for some reason we think as we get to that point in our lives, it's over. And it's just too late. We can't do anything. We're in our 70s. Well, when we look at the late 60s, early 70s, again, they could still have 20, 30 years of retirement ahead of them. So it definitely is not too late. We see many people doing a lot of great things. Now, if you're looking at that age, getting into insurance and some of the other things that we talk about, maybe a life insurance retirement plan, yeah, going to be pretty tough. 71, especially, you look at the cost of that. We're going to have a struggle to get you into a low fee, but definitely not from a conversion side to get money going into that Roth. It really comes back down to tax rates and obviously longevity. But if you're going to pass away next year, hey, it doesn't really matter much to you. But we want to look at those tax rates. We're in a period of historically low tax time, and then we've got 4 years now to be able to make those conversions for, again, a couple that one of them 25% chance, one of them will live into their 90s.
Dave, as we look at this, you're saying that 71 and 68 in retirement is relatively pretty young.
It is when we look at average life expectancy for someone that made it to 65. Now, if we take infant mortalities, accidents happen in your working years, that the average life expectancy is 79. But for the people like them that have made to 65, or life expectancy for a male somewhere around 84, for a female around age 88, and that's the average. Again, that's the middle point. So half the people are living longer than that, and then obviously got those like my parents that died much younger than that.
And Dave, one more thing as we're looking at this, I'm just thinking to myself, when is it too late to say we've already missed our window? Because what you're saying is we still have a lot of opportunities. We're slim on other areas. So if we're looking at maybe long-term care, it may be more expensive. But what you're saying is that there's still opportunities out there, and we don't need to just write this off by saying I'm too late.
Yeah, when it's too late, when you're on your way to the funeral home. I mean, when you look at it, that's the reality. I mean, you take someone that's 90 years old, and again, depending on what type of assets they have and what they want the money to do, they may still want to do conversions right before they pass away, even to make it better for their kids, for those inheriting that remaining money. So, again, I don't mean to be funny with it, but when we look at it, really, until you hit that end, it's like running a race. Until you get to that finish line, you don't know what's going to happen in front of you. We don't know what's going to happen to those in front of you, and we don't know on this end. I mean, obviously we can do some projecting, but it's like until we get there, hey, let's do the things we need to do.
All right. Thank you so much, Dave. Let's jump back over to my next question here. So I've got Stan and Olive, 55, and they're expecting their first grandson in the next few weeks. To leave him tax-free inheritance, what would be their best option?
The best option for them and their age to do this would be life insurance. What they want to do is really be able to give him money, pennies on the dollar, especially when they look at their life ages now. They've got a lot of life for themselves, but really to leave that life insurance. You got situations where you may be putting in $100,000 and giving $1 million benefit to the grandchild, depending on length of time there.
And Dave, we were in one of our webinars yesterday. So again, we have, I don't know, how many do we have? 13 or 14 webinars currently?
Yeah, somewhere around there. We just launched a new one, and Gary hopefully got signed up. It did finally hit the platform on our Roth accounts. That's going to be end of this month, sometimes the first class.
Yeah, I'll get the details for you, Gary. But with Dave, as we look at this, as we talk in all of these different webinars about all the things we're looking at, you mentioned in there that sometimes as we get into retirement, we still have a lot of debt. Somebody was asking the question about, is it important to have our home paid off? And a lot of times you said we get debt. So I look at something like this, and sometimes the grandparents are taking on the grandkids' school debt. And there's a lot of things we look at. So I'd love to have your feedback on that, because I thought that was a pretty powerful statement yesterday.
Yeah, we've got to focus more on ourselves. And unfortunately, I'm a giver. I'm one who loves to give my time to other people. I have 7 kids that I take care of and I'm responsible for. But we get to a point that we've got to start taking care of ourselves and make sure that that's secure. Again, this even on Stan and Olive's side, if you're looking at it and saying, look, we want to give them money, but we're going to live like paupers throughout the rest of our retirement, don't recommend that. What we want to do is say, look, there's a point we just got to kick back, and it's going to help us grow. I look back at my own life. It's the way I was raised that helped me become who I am today. It was those challenges, those struggles, not being able to go to activities because we didn't have any money, having to go to the post office 3 days before my dad's check showed up because we needed it and we hoped it came early so we could pay those bills. Well, that made me who I am. And sometimes in life, we've got to just realize we can't take these burdens on. Now, if you're already in that boat, what you got to do is figure out how you can quickly get, especially that debt paid down, so you don't have all those costs going into a time in life where, and many of you don't have the income that you're going to need to get through anyway.
And Dave, the other thing I want to bring up with this too is just make sure that we communicate. I think this is the other thing we've talked about, especially when it comes to long-term care. Even just in general, we've got to make sure that we're communicating to our spouse, first of all, and then to our children so they know. Because, we even talk about things with reverse mortgage and how, there are certain situations that it could work for some and not for others because the way we just lack of communication.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up on one of the webinars I was on yesterday as well. That was one I was teaching and you being moderated by CPA Academy. But in there, someone brought up, I mentioned reverse mortgage, and they immediately said, reverse mortgages are evil. Well, then I responded back to him and said, hey, I don't know that I'd call them evil. There's some good things for people with a reverse mortgage. I know many people that like them. And then they went on to explain that the frustration is that her father-in-law had gotten the reverse mortgage and never told anyone that they did it. That he ended up getting this reverse mortgage. So I think the frustration was, hey, we lost an asset we thought we were going to get, but then also now we're dealing with some paperwork we didn't want to deal with. Like you mentioned, CR, if you can have that communication, it changes the whole story. And again, for this person, they're throwing the whole reverse mortgage industry under the bus, which in my opinion wasn't fair because they had a bad experience. And that's another thing I think we've got to be careful of. Just because we don't communicate doesn't mean that something that was done was a bad thing. And I've got to assume for her father-in-law that, hey, he loved the money. He needed the money maybe to be able to live off of. Something great for him to be able to improve his retirement off of. But
yeah, definitely agree. Well, Dave, let's pull up. I got a big question here from Gary. So hopefully you can still see you on the screen there. But we're talking about Gary, and I love these questions because some of these have a good background for us. So Dave, Gary mentions my millennial daughter's employer offers a mega backdoor Roth after-tax contributions in service distributions to which she has been maximum contributions over the past 3 years. Each year before she starts contributing to the mega backdoor Roth IRA, she first contributes her employee maximum to her Roth 401k. It gives the amount there. The question that he's asking is, can my daughter contribute first to the mega backdoor Roth IRA before contributing her employer maximum to her Roth 401k?
it's my understanding, no. Now, Gary, I'm not 100% certain on this. I've done some research on this topic here recently. And from what I'm gathering is that you've got to make that employee contribution first to get all the other pieces in motion, because there would be an employer match that's going on inside of there that's going to help you figure out how much you are able to put in. Now, obviously, they could calculate that saying, hey, if I put $20,500 in, this is my wages, and this is what the employer is going to put into here. I can calculate that if the percentage is, but my understanding is she's going to have to do the other first. And we can, obviously, we've got your contact information, Gary. It's something I can look into further and get back with you on to just confirm that.
Yeah, we didn't get the last part of that question there, Gary. It looks like it got cut off, but I really appreciate that question. Dave, let me ask you about mega backdoor Roth. We get a lot of people that are coming and asking questions. Is this still going to be around? Is this something we can still count on? And what's your advice for those that are still contributing?
I really like mega backdoor Roths because this is done through a 401k plan. And as Gary's mentioning with his daughter, that he set it up to where the money's going in. It's quite easy to do if the employer allows the after-tax contributions coming into the plan. Now, if you were someone like myself, who is a highly compensated owner that has, small handful of employees, you may not be able to do it because of top-heavy issues. The one that I'm really concerned about, and not that I don't like it if it works, it's the backdoor Roth IRA. Because when we look at the IRA side, most people are not handling it correctly. They get this envision that, hey, I can put after-tax money in here, roll it over into my Roth account, and they forget that if they have other IRA assets, all of those have to be considered into the conversion into the Roth, and it creates an accounting nightmare and a basis nightmare and a tax nightmare for many people that they weren't expecting.
And Dave, I appreciate that one. And earlier we were talking about that communication. One of the things I wanted to pull up as we were kind of diving into this is I wanted to talk about Clarence's story here. Clarence recently became his daughter's caretaker since his wife passed away. If he were to hire someone to care for her while he works during the day, will this impact his retirement savings?
In theory, yes. Now, depending on where he's getting money from, the severity of his daughter's disabilities, and when they started, there are situations where these individuals will be able to get government benefits throughout their lifetime. I've got a disabled daughter myself. She's 9 years old, going to need some type of assistance for the rest of her life. Never going to be able to be out on her own. But depending on the structure of that, he may have other income coming in from Social Security or somewhere else that is able to be used for that. But really, it's in most cases, it is going to eat away from the savings. And again, unfortunately, as we age and with these individuals that struggle with these disabilities, as they get older, it oftentimes gets more expensive. It's not like it gets cheaper; it gets more and more expensive because, and just the nature of life. We oftentimes, you look at my daughter; she weighs all 55 pounds. Pretty easy for my wife and I, and myself especially, pick her up. I can throw her around, do whatever. But she weighs 150 pounds. That's a whole different story. Requires a whole different need base there. Going to maybe require other people, especially if it's my wife, to come in and help there. But so yeah, most people, yes, Clarence, it's going to affect. You've got to look at that and take that into consideration to make sure that it's going to work out for you and you're going to get through your own retirement so you can continue to take care of her.
David, as we dive into this, we've got long-term care, we've got disability, we've got so many other factors that we really don't plan on, because I feel like a lot of times in life we just say we'll deal with that when we get there. But in this particular case, we've got to make sure that we're really focused on making sure that we're eliminating the risks that are associated with this. And that's one of the things I feel like we need to kind of address as we're getting closer.
Well, and it's like us. Again, we're in the process of adopting this little girl. I'm very excited. Hopefully, it happens any day now. We're just waiting for a court date. But when we look at that, even at this point, we're already addressing it with our children. I've told this on some of our platforms that we told our kids about this. I've got a 13-year-old autistic son, and he's like, "Okay, Dad, I'm okay. I'm not getting a bunch of the money, but can I have something? Can I have your truck? Can I have a couch? Maybe a rug?" And so we laugh, my wife and I, and says, "You know what? We've got even better news for you. We're going to give you all three of those. You can take the truck, the couch, the rug, put those in the back of the truck, and I guess now you have a place to live too if you want to." But again, we're already doing that planning. We've got a daughter that she went to school to deal with special needs people, and she currently is a manager at an adult special needs facility. So very familiar with what happens. Her husband's a nurse. We're putting those things in place. Now, hopefully I live for 30, 40 years. But if I don't, and my wife even longer, but if we don't, we've got those things in place. And that is what we've got to do. The minute you see something that's changing, the minute you see that life's going to be different, you've got to get ahead of that. I look back, CR, not to go on too long here, but even my kidney situation, I have decades of family kidney problems. My grandmother died of it. My mom died of it. Sister went on dialysis. All of a sudden it comes to me. Now, I was very blessed to find someone, but I'll tell you, I did a ton of work the minute I realized I had kidney problems. Did all my research, looked out there where I could go get a donor, talk to friends, started doing things proactively before I ever got to the point that I was potentially going to go on dialysis. Therefore, when we got there, it was all set up. We're in a position, again, I got very lucky to find someone that matched so well, but I compared that even to many of my siblings that just said, "Yeah, I got problems. Guess I wait until I get on dialysis and go through that process. And at some point, maybe I can get somebody to give me a kidney. If not, the government will, the system will give me a kidney 4 or 5 years into it." Well, the outcome's completely different. So you are the same with our retirement. Those who plan for it, you got a great situation. I love Gary, what he's planning for his kids decades in advance, saying, "Hey, we're going to not only take care of myself, I'm going to take care of you." Going to be much different than those of us that don't.
And Dave, I know you talk about this quite a bit. So we talk about the kidney disease and the things you've dealt with in your life, and it's not just for you, but it's for all of your family members. And we talk about that. When is the right time? So you're in high school. When is the right time for you to say, "Hey, I know this is coming. It's part of my family. When am I able to set some money aside to make sure?" or when am I able to purchase the right products that's going to help me when I need them the most?
Well, yeah, and this is a great question. I'll tell you, if you got these type of issues, things to look at. Obviously, I was never diagnosed as a young child that I had these issues, even going into my 30s, 40s, because partially I didn't want to go get checked because there was nothing that could be done. So there's no need for me to go get checked because it's like, hey, there's one big thing that's going to happen if they identify that I had a 50% chance of having issues. Say, look, Dave's got kidney failure. You're not getting life insurance again. So what you bring up, CR, is very important. I do it with my kids. It's like, look, unfortunately, you guys got a 50-50 chance. We don't know which one of you six, biological children are going to have the issue, but three of you probably are. But you know what? Go get your insurance and everything set in place first. Get married. Get all those things taken care of that you want to do. And then, when you get in your 40s, maybe 50s, those things start, the failure starts happening maybe a little more rapidly. You've got everything in place. Well, then you can go check it out. And again, there's not a thing beyond living healthy, keeping your blood pressure down that you could do during that 40 years anyway, excluding maybe mentally preparing yourself to say, yeah, you know what? I'm 49 years old for me. I'm 49 years old, and life's going to be a lot different for me going forward.
Dave, and I appreciate that, because I know a lot of times we're on here, we're answering questions, but I love the fact that you are here to educate because of the experiences you've had. And you also share a lot of personal stories that I feel that really help me to understand what I need to do better in my life. But I think I'm hoping that it helps those who are with us as well.
Well, I'm glad to share what I share, and I'm glad for the opportunity to be able to talk to people. Again, my experience is going to be different than everyone else's, but it was my experience that got me to a place that I wanted to give back, that I realized, look, I would have loved to have had someone as a child that would have taken me by the hand and said, look, let me explain finance and life and everything to you. Now, there were people obviously that were able to help, maybe from a financial side of getting me into college, or someone pushing me to take college classes in high school that were offered. Those things were very helpful, but it's my goal to get people now where it says, look, we got time. For many people, others are in it, but it's like, hey, still, you're alive. You've got years ahead of you, whether it's 1, 10, 20, or 30. Let's figure out how we can make the best of that. Let's put things together so you can have the best experience you can possibly have.
And that's why we're here. I'm hoping that we can continually share these experiences. I know on a future podcast you have coming up, Dave, you talk a lot more about the experiences you've had as well. And so just a little teaser, if you haven't listened to the Retirement Risk Show, you can find that on any platform you listen to on podcasts. We have another episode coming out Friday. Every Friday we have a new episode, but you can hear some more stories from Dave on there as well. All right, Deb, I've got one more. I teased this one in before the show, and I wanted to bring this one up because I thought this was a very interesting question. Sully is 60, wants to start his own business after he retires from the accounting firm where he has spent the last 20 years. Should he pull from his 401k to begin his startup?
CR, I'm glad you saved this for the end because, many people may not like my answer to this one. For most people, I'm going to tell you no. I'm sorry. When we look at the fail rate of businesses, it is a risky investment. So if you're going to do it, make sure you're definitely not pulling the whole amount out. Unfortunately, I've had multiple people throughout my lifetime that have thought this was their next road to riches. And so far, I hate to tell you, CR, I've yet to have a client do that. And I know there are people out there that have done it, not saying that it hasn't worked for a small percentage of America, but this is a very risky investment. And again, depending on what's being done, maybe it's not as risky. If he's been doing taxes his whole life and he's saying, look, I want to go out on my own, I need some startup capital to get an accounting office going. But how much is it really going to cost? Work from your home. Do it remotely right now, the way things work. Stay in an environment like we've been in. But yeah, for most people, absolutely not. It would take a lot to convince me, someone give me the information, say, I think that's a great investment for your retirement, that somehow that's going to work out well for you.
Yeah, Dave, I saved this to the end because I just really wanted this to be something that we need to think about, because this could easily be, let's say that Sully wants to get into real estate. There's a lot of options that people look at toward the end, because to me, what I feel like they're looking for a rapid success. They're looking for something quickly to turn around, versus maybe in this case, he really is trying to find something. But a lot of times we're trying to find that quick fix because we haven't been really saving properly for retirement.
CR, I share the story in Getting Safely Through about my mother-in-law, and we won't go into all of it here, but basically this is what she tried to do. She was at a point that she was in past 60. They didn't have enough money. She was trying to fill the income gap. She had stayed home her whole career, taking care of the kids, done a lot of work there, but it ended up costing them $50,000 that they would have lost fully had I not been able to help them. And it wasn't just about me. There are other people that could have tried, but I happened to know the information that I needed to know to be able to go get that money back. It was gone. It wasn't like, that I was saving them from spending the money. That money was already spent. It had hit their credit cards. It had hit their home equity line. It had been their bank accounts. All that had been drained, and they had a major issue. So super careful. Again, seeing even smart business owners, all of a sudden decide they want to do something. I've got a client that lives in Massachusetts. He's in real estate and great at it. He does a lot of great things. Decided he wanted to start a kids franchise, like a trampoline park or something like that. Not going to name the brand here, but it was something like that where you take your kids to use this retirement money. I said, I just don't think this is a good idea for you. Yet he went ahead. Guess what? He lost it all. Now, COVID obviously helped put the nail in the coffin, but even before COVID, it wasn't heading the right direction.
And Dave, I appreciate that. And I'm going to pull up one more here if I can get this to show up here from Gary. I really like this. So he's talking about Tom Hagna. So Dave, you've had him on several podcasts with you, and Tom is a financial expert. He's an author, a speaker, and the former vice president of New York Life. So I know you guys have really done a lot together. So let me just read his comment here. Please comment on Tom Hagna's premise that the financially happiest retiree is the retiree with multiple streams of guaranteed income, particularly multiple streams of guaranteed tax-free income. Reference Tom's comment, you don't want to be the richest guy in the cemetery.
Gary, thanks for bringing this up, because this is something that I've spent a lot of time looking at lately, not only because of Tom, but a guy named Doug Orchard just did a new video out there. He was the one who produced the Power of Zero video for Dave McKnight. This one is talking about this subject. And he brings a ton of people in, including Tom Hagna. He's in the video, and I wish I could remember the name here, but they talk about the importance of income. It's just like Gary's living here in San Francisco. If I go to San Francisco in retirement and say, hey, Gary, I'd like to retire in San Francisco, how many assets do I have to have? Well, that's not the question. As we talk about here, it's not about the assets that I have available. That's not what he's going to answer. It's really what kind of income do I need? What's the cost of living here? It's going to be 10 grand a month, 20 grand a month, or whatever that case may be. Because again, that's what's going to get us through. And we don't want to have all those assets. We don't want to be a penny pincher and then die. Let the IRS or the attorneys or someone else get to our kids. They're going to do all the things that we wish we would have done. So I appreciate you bringing that up. But again, maybe somewhere we can post what that video is. But great option out there if you really want to better understand the importance of tax-free lifetime income and mathematically how it works. They've got some top key people there besides Tom Hagna, people that have analyzed pension plans for decades, analyzed annuities for decades, and say, look, this is the way to happiness and success.
Well, Dave, I will get that and make sure I put it in the comments. I'll be able to see that later on. And I, again, appreciate that very much, Gary. Dave, that's the one thing is we are here talking about that multiple streams of income along with eliminating risk in retirement. There's a lot of things we focus on, and I just really appreciate the opportunity that you had. It looks like Elliot said it's the Boomer movie.
Yeah, he gets the prize now. Thank you for getting that information. Again, apologize I couldn't remember it. Just watched it like a week ago, but a great movie on understanding the importance of that lifetime income, that tax-free lifetime income, and the happiness it brings. Again, if you got a check coming in, you go down there, there's a Social Security check that hit your bank, and you got a monthly check that covered the rest of those costs. Not a lot to worry about in retirement. We can go golf, we can go disc golf, we can roller golf, we can go to the movies, whatever the case may be, and know we can enjoy that time together.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you, everyone. Elliot, Gary, Mike, everyone for chiming in with us live today. And for those on replay, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate this. And we're hoping that we can continually answer your questions. So if you have those, please go to Retirement Risk Advisors and go to the Contact Us page, submit your questions. We'll get that taken care of. And Gary, I do have one. I'll reach back out to you to make sure we get your other question answered. But Dave, final thoughts as we end today. We have gone over, but I want your final thoughts as we're continually working on educating in retirement.
Yeah, let's keep taking action. That's my push for this year. We need to take action, even small steps. It's been said, we all overestimate what we can accomplish in a year. We underestimate what we can accomplish in a decade. Most of us have a decade or more that we can start working on this stuff. Again, even if you're in your 60s, you still should have hopefully a decade of life left that you're able to make some adjustments and some changes. So let's start making those adjustments. Every day we do a little better, we get a little closer and a little closer. And then pretty soon we wake up one morning and say, we did it. We got where we need to be. And we're happy that we put in the time and the effort.
Such great advice. Well, Dave, thank you so much. And again, everyone, thank you. We'll see you guys again next Wednesday. So every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time, we'll see you here and we'll see you next time.